Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So welcome to our final event for New Voices, New Rooms, the August 22 edition. It has been such an awesome week. Love seeing all of these great events and education sessions and talking to fellow booksellers. And we have these wonderful authors tonight. We are thrilled to have them here to speak with you all. First, to our bookseller audience, we would love, again, for you to say hello. Thank you, Evan and Andy, for saying hello in the chat there. Let us know where you're from. And also, we're not using the Q&A for questions for the authors, but any questions or comments you have in the chat for specific authors, we're going to forward along to them. I'd also like to thank the publisher sponsors of this panel. That's Source Books, Blackstone Publishing, Algonquin Books, and Grand Central Publishing. So now I'm going to introduce our authors. Quickly before we get to do that, if you were watching along on social media and seeing who the moderator is supposed to be, you might be thinking that Hannah was supposed to be moderating this panel, and she was, but unfortunately, she was not able to do that. So I'm stepping in for Hannah. She sent along her questions for all of our amazing authors. So that's why you're going to see me looking down a little bit, reading those questions, because she prepared so well for this. We want to make sure that those questions get asked of our awesome authors. So I'm going to introduce them now, and you can give a little wave if you'd like. First up, Rabia Chaudhry is an attorney, advocate, podcaster, and author of the New York Times bestseller, Adnan's Story, and executive producer of a 4-part HBO documentary, The Case Against Adnan Syed, which was based on her book. Chaudhry is also co-producer and co-host of 3 podcasts, Undisclosed, The 45th, and the new The Hidden Gin. Welcome. Next up, we've got a 2-for-1 here. Amber Ruffin is the host of The Amber Ruffin Show on NBC's streaming service Peacock, and a writer and cast member on NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers. She also became the first Black woman to write for a late night talk show in American history when she joined Seth's staff in 2014, and was a writer and performer on HBO's Black Lady sketch show. Welcome. Lacey Lamarr is Amber Ruffin's big sister. After years of working for her community, she has landed in a profession where she helps immigrants find work in their new country. Living in Nebraska, Lacy loves the challenge of creating safe spaces for the celebration of nerd/African-American culture. Welcome, Lacy. And Craig Morgan has made a name for himself as a country music icon, TV personality, celebrated outdoorsman, and patriotic Army veteran. One of country music's best loved artists, Morgan is a member of the Grand Ole Opry and has charted 25 songs on Billboard. He spent 17 years serving in the U.S. Army and Army Reserve, and is a recipient of the USO Merit Award and the Army's Outstanding Civilian Service Medal. Welcome, Craig. So again, as we get to the questions, I want to reiterate and thank Hannah Oliver Depp of Loyalty Books for coming up with these great questions for our authors. Again, she was supposed to host tonight, but was unavoidably called away. So first, we're going to talk a little bit with Rabia Chaudhry, and we want to hear about Fatty Fatty Boom Boom, which will be published by Algonquin Books. So Hannah's first question for you. There are hardly things more universal than our complicated relationship with food. It seems a universal theme that body image and our families can really lead to much torment, but your love of food helped transform negativity into a beautiful thing. Would you share about coming to know food through cooking and how that became the focus rather than weight? Because it's written so wonderfully in your book.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. And it's exciting to be here with these amazing authors. It's such an honor. Yeah, this is, if people know of me, they don't know of me for this issue, obviously. They follow me because of social justice or criminal justice work that I do, or some of the podcasts that I do. But when I thought about what I wanted to write about in terms of a memoir, and each of us, as we know, can write memoirs in so many different ways, the different aspects of our life we can focus on. I said, gosh, that one thing that has just been haunted me my entire life, and just been that it's the story I haven't told. And years ago, I was asked to write specifically for a magazine about weight issues, which obviously are directly connected to our love of food and food issues and body image issues. And I said, no, I'm not ready to do that. I cannot expose myself in that way. And I thought, okay, the rawest book I could write would really be about this issue. But there's no way to disconnect the weight loss journey and struggle, which literally has followed me since my infancy. I divorced that from like my love of food and my struggle with being loved through food. I mean, my parents loved me through food, and they were new immigrants to this country. We were discovering American foods, thinking if it's made in America, it's got to be great for you. So I grew up on like bologna and processed cheese and all this stuff that they thought this is like, America can't get this wrong, and it's taken me 40 odd years to realize that, the traditional foods that of my, like, to kind of rediscover it and rediscover like, health and abundance and just wellness and happiness in all of that food. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for, telling us. Of course, everyone's books are very personal because we were talking about memoir, but just hearing you say that you're coming to it now and you couldn't come to it before, just really powerful. And I feel like Hannah could figure out what you're going to go to next, because she says you discuss a lot that your American and Pakistani identities put a lot of emphasis on both consuming food and then what your future will be as a woman who loves food. She said, it's wild to me that auntie culture crossed so many backgrounds and they love to feed us. But then that relationship can also be too critical, while the act of feeding each other is quite literally nourishment and loving. So how can we mold these relationships forward so we get the care and the culture with less of the judgment?
Yeah, it's interesting, like you can almost see the switch flip when it's with like the maternal figures in my life, my mother, my aunts, my others. In the moment of actually feeding you, they want to see you eat. But before and after, like the switch flips, and they're like, you put on a few, like, have you thought about walking every day? You know what I mean? Like it all comes with it, but they also don't want you to be deprived. And this is the struggle that they're struggling with, is how they don't want to withhold that love from us, right? Like, and I do the same thing with my children, right? It's like, eat good food. I want you to be loved, but I also want you to be healthy and take care of yourself. I think, it's hard to, those are boundaries that we all have to kind of figure out. I'm frankly still figuring out. I have an adult daughter who's 25, and we have a lot of conversations around this, like, where those boundaries are. And I think that for most individuals, it can take a long time to know, to understand that although it might feel like sometimes it's damaging, sometimes it's toxic, a lot of times it's coming from a place of love, and either build a little bit of a wall so you're able to like be resilient and realize, look, when it's aunties, it is hard to teach an old auntie new tricks, right? It is hard to say to an auntie, listen, this is like bad for my body image, and you are. And so I have learned to just kind of take it in stride and know that it's out of love, and they don't know the best way to make me feel loved through the food. And so I have had to learn to do that myself.
Yes, thank you. It sounds like love and everything else very intertwined, and trying to figure out how to.
And, look, Muslims, like, culturally, we don't drink, we don't party. Like, food is all we have to enjoy our lives. It's, so everything's got to revolve around food. And there's just no way that, you're not going to show up somewhere and get fed like, Ritz crackers and salads, because it would dishonor the ancestors, for centuries back. So there's just no escaping it. Yeah.
Well, that ties into the next question. What is your favorite recipe in the book to make?
Oh, I think hands down my chicken pulao, because a lot of people, when they go to restaurants, so people will get confused because they're saying, oh, it's just Indian food, but no, it's not. I want to distinguish Pakistani food from Indian food. There's some overlap. People are very familiar with biryani because it's like the spicy rice dish that has meat in it. But in the Punjab region, where my family's from, we make pulao, and pulao is basically a pilaf. So it's rice cooked in broth, and it's a lot harder to master because you have to get the rice and meat and water ratio exactly right, or the rice will turn to mush. And I got my first auntie credit when I learned to master that about 25 years ago, thanks to my terrible ex-mother-in-law. But everybody brings something to the table, and she made incredible rice. So I'm most proud of that. It's the dish everybody knows me for in like my friend circle, and it's one of my favorite comfort foods.
It sounds like your signature dish. Now, be honest, how long did it take you to master that? Because when you said the rice could turn to mush, I was just like, that made me nervous.
No, once my ex-mother-in-law said, there's a ratio, it's not that complicated, and told me exactly what to look for. I got it after like 2 or 3 tries. I got it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you for sharing about your book. We're going to hop over to talking with Craig Morgan, who is the author of God, Family, Country, and that is published by Blackstone. So, Craig, your title is a strong thesis statement about your beliefs and what has led you through life, through military service and country music fame. You sort of had this as a mantra, you could say. So, what made you want to share more details of your life than fans already knew?
I think, the more we share about ourselves with each other, and in particular, in this case, my fan base, and I would say, venture to say now, outside of my fan base, because of some of the things that have happened in my life, I think people get to see a side of me that, we all have perceptions of other people, especially profile personalities. This is an opportunity for those people who may have preconceived ideas about me, to learn a little bit more about me. And I think the more we learn about each other, the better we are at getting along. For one, sometimes we don't know everything that everyone's been through. And I think in sharing some of these things, people can understand maybe why we do the things we do. I sing the songs I sing and act the way that I act when they see some of the things that I've done in my life.
Yes, I think that's a great reminder. Thank you. So you discussed playing with your father at a young age, but then you pivoted toward military service and you had some hair-raising close shaves and feats with your team without spoiling anything. How has that shaped your return to music and your subsequent adventures?
Well, I venture to say any one of the authors that are going to talk about the things that have happened in their life, all of these things shape our life. Our occupations affect us and affect how we do things and how we perceive things. For me, I had the great privilege of being in the United States Army and traveling the world. So I was exposed to cultures far exceeding anything that I had ever expected or grew up in. In Middle Tennessee, I never experienced anything like what I experienced being in the military and traveling and again, being amongst other cultures. And I'm grateful for that because it gave me a much greater insight to other people's perspectives. So there's no question that having been in the military and all that it did, people ask me all the time, how did you transition from the military into music? And I tell them that I'm still working on it. The military was such a big part of my life and always has been. And there's an old saying, once a soldier, always a soldier. And I think that is a very true statement. And I tell people all the time, as a soldier, as someone in that industry, law enforcement officers, first responders, doctors, nurses, they all have this gene inside of them that creates an infectious desire to be there to help other people. And not necessarily for the pats on the back. It's just we desire, and that will never leave me. I'll always have that. And the military fed that. So needless to say, as an entertainer now, it's a little different. But I still get to do things. And that's why this book, it for me was so important, because even though I've been in the music industry for about 20 years now, there's a lot of things that I have done while in the music industry that I was able to participate in that fed those very desires. Going into places like India, places like Pakistan, Thailand, other countries, and helping to remove people who have been enslaved for whatever reasons. Primarily with my focus being in the company I work with, focusing on children who are being traded for sex. So I've been able to help in a way, even though I've had this career. So that's why this book for me is important, so people can see those things and understand how my head may be rolling around sometimes why I write and sing and do the things that I do from the platform that I've been given.
Right. A little more behind the scenes and maybe the connections between your songs and your experiences. And in that similar vein, how is the approach different when you're approaching writing a memoir as opposed to songwriting, right? Different. Did you find some similarities? Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I'm sure there's similarities, and some of these more eloquent writers could probably allude to that better than me. But for me, in songwriting, I have 3 to 3.5 minutes to tell you an entire story. With this book, I took almost 2 years to tell a lifespan of stories. My most difficult issue with writing this book was we only had so much space, what stories not to tell. And I understand the importance of maintaining the reader's attention. And I got to be honest with everyone, I'm not like a big reader. My wife can read 3 books a week. She's so much more intelligent than I am when it comes to reading. But I love listening to books. Audiobooks is my thing. And maybe that's got something to do with my mental mechanisms with the songwriting and stuff. But the difference is with the song, I only have 3.5 minutes to draw this entire picture. With this book, I get a whole book to do that. And so the great thing about that is we can go deeper. In the song, we leave a lot open to the listener. With this book, there's a lot of details that if I were to write a song I did write a song called God, Family, Country. Wait a minute. But it would be different. If I wrote a song called God, Family, Country that was about my life in this book, it wouldn't have the details that this book has. And again, there was just so much, and there's so many stories, most of which I didn't even realize were happening until we talked about writing a book. And over time period, people would say, man, you really should write this down, write a book, tell these stories, because there have been so much going on. Even while as an entertainer, while I was an entertainer, I was going overseas and doing various things in various works. And that's what this book is really about, that and how I got to where I'm at today.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think the fun thing about memoirs, usually when they're the audiobooks, is that the authors get to read them. So hearing people's stories literally in their own voices is really exciting to hear. And people in the chat are jumping in about audiobooks are 100% reading. There are some people that don't believe that, but not here. We all believe that. So thanks, Craig, for telling us about your book. So
thank you. And can I just say, ladies, thank y'all so much. I've been reading up on all of you, and I look forward to listening to your books. But I just want to say thank you, and I'm really enjoying your stories.
Thanks. And we have Carell Augustus here. So we're going to hop to you next. Carell, let me do a little intro, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're following your journey. We're glad you're here. So Carell Augustus, it's fine. It's all, it's all entertaining.
Yes.
Is a Los Angeles-based photographer whose career has taken him around the world to shoot some of the biggest stars on the planet. His celebrity clients have included Viola Davis, Beverly Johnson, Mariah Carey, Elizabeth Banks, Pierce Brosnan, Meghan Markle, Serena Williams, Snoop Dogg, and more. So we are going to hear from Carell today about Black Hollywood, which is published by Sourcebook. So Carell, I have some questions from our amazing moderator, Hannah Oliver Depp, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. So that's what you're going to see me looking down. Okay. She prepared some great questions for you. So first one is, your book takes the incredible folks of Black Hollywood of now and places them in recognizable classic photos and films of the past. Black actors and creators are not new, but their history was often erased. So in creating this book, is the intention a rethinking, a tribute? What was the germ that started this beautiful project?
Well, thank you for the question. And to everybody, I do apologize. I flew to South Carolina 2 days ago. So my brain and the East Coast. So I'm trying to catch up with it. I'm in my backyard. I'm here now. So I see so many people who I love and respect and admire. So I'm really honored to be here. So my book came from a multifaceted place. And I wanted to do something that was going to cause people to think, maybe think twice, rethink, maybe undo some things that they were taught growing up that they saw. And I wanted to do that in the most effective way that I could as a photographer, visually. And, I wanted to add a little bit of controversy potentially in there as well, because that gets people going and talking and approach some really good friends of mine who happen to be entertainers and explain to them what I wanted to do as far as, I really want to take some iconic images and redo them with African-American celebrities and entertainers. And I was a little bit naive because I thought everybody would hop on that. and it wasn't as easy in the beginning, but it sort of found its rhythm. And I'm so excited about what we came up with for the ultimate book.
Yes, the booksellers who are in attendance here have gotten to see some of the amazing images. And
Oh, thank you.
So especially when Source Books reps were showing them, we're just like jaws dropped.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. What were some of the hardest shots to recreate? And then how did you choose what would go into what film image? I'm sure that there were so many options, right? So how do you narrow it down?
Well, I wanted to do something where I could be the most effective, that I could pay and make look good. That was the first thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to cover it and make it believable. But everybody that I spoke with, every single person that I spoke with, maybe with the exception of two, had some sort of connection to the idea that I brought to them. And a couple of the hardest things were, the fact that I was doing this all out of pocket and borrowing friends' time and paying for portions of their time to help me. So we didn't have the typical crash pads for Kyla Pratt if she had so happened to tumble off of that broomstick that we had her on, or when I was putting Corbin Blue, like suspending him in the air like Tom Cruise. They just trusted me, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't break that trust. And once they saw the finished product, they were just enamored with it. So those are a couple of my favorite, and those are the ones that that stick out to me the most. Of course, Vanessa Williams as Cleopatra. It's like, come on, it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. And I wanted to do things that sort of made sense. And as far as Amber Stevens West as Holly Golightly, I had seen her at a party in LA when she was on the TV show Greek, and I said, "Oh, this girl, she's striking." And I saw her, and as a photographer, I just thought Audrey Hepburn. That's what I thought when I saw her. So when the book came up about a year and a half later, we have a mutual friend. So I said, "Would you ask her if she'd be willing to pose as this?" So I used to interview people in the beginning, and I actually interviewed her. There's a cool little snippet of her talking about when I approached her to do Audrey Hepburn. She had only had 2 pictures up in her house, one of her family and one of Audrey Hepburn. So
Wow.
it just kind of made sense and checked off the box. Everybody had a particular connection to the shot I had asked them to do. And if they didn't, we found something that worked for them.
Yeah, that's so important, I think, and will also help us when we are handing these books to people and hand selling it, that it goes just beyond the photograph, right? There's like a whole story with all photographs, but it seems even in this case, there's stories upon stories behind the photographs and why certain people were connected in certain ways to a certain film. So thank you for sharing that.
Right. Absolutely.
So having worked all over the world with some of the most incredible people, what do you think it is about classic Hollywood that still has a hold on us today?
Well, I think all of us grew up, most of us rather, watching American television. And, these people were in our, main frame of thinking since we were kids. I grew up watching Good Times and the Jeffersons and all the stuff that was just constantly on. And Back to the Future, The Goonies, and all these big movies that we saw growing up. So I think, America is a huge TV culture. I'm a product of the 70s, so I was raised in the 80s. So TV was really big in the 80s. So I think all of us found ourselves sort of escaping through television. And these characters that became beloved, just ultimately meant something to us. So I can only imagine that some of the stuff that I focused on from previous decades, the same sort of experience that we had as viewers, people were having a very similar experience. So I think that's why. I think when you say Magnum PI, when you say the Dukes of Hazzard, we all sort of would rush home on Thursday and Friday nights to make sure we didn't miss it because we didn't have VCRs and DVRs. We had to catch it. So, that was the thing. So I think they just speak to us, these characters. Wonder Woman, just things that you hear, you just are taken back to that place and time.
you're taken back, and then I think ideas pop into your mind, right? You think
Right.
Wonder Woman, you think of certain things, and I just love that there are going to be new images that tie to these ideas from your book. And our
That's right.
last question for you is, what is
Please.
your relationship to writing versus the photography of the book? Was the writing a newer skill to you? I know you did mention that you had interviewed one person that you've photographed maybe before, but
Yeah.
talk a little on that.
Yeah, so I interviewed, I think in the beginning, I interviewed maybe 8 or 9 people, but I had already asked them to come to the studio. We had already gotten hair and makeup and shots done, and I didn't want to keep taking more of their time. So I was just trying to eliminate and make it, when I gave my elevator pitch, I'm like, you'll be in 20 minutes, you'll be out in 30 seconds, da, 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 da. And then when people realize that you're not going to sort of commandeer all of their time, they're like, okay, yes, I'll show up, I'll do that. So, I can write, but I'm not a writer per se. And I've gone back to take writing classes because, maybe if I hadn't spent so much time in front of the television in the 80s, I would have developed that skill a little better. But it's one of the things that I wish that I had focused more on as a kid, because I wrote a lot for the book, and and I had another person look over it and correct some things that I should have known. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to tell a story visually. They say a picture says 1,000 words. So, maybe that's my out.
Yeah. So you have, quite a few thousand words.
Yeah. But I
book.
did write some stuff. So I think I want to continue my journey of becoming a proper writer so I can do it properly.
Well, I think I will say, if you write, you are a proper writer. All you need to do that is write. So you are a proper writer, 100%.
Okay. I'll take it.
Officially a proper writer. And I feel like you had to learn something from those TV shows, right? You're learning about character and plot and, maybe a little bit of cliffhangers as well. But thank you for telling us about your book. We'll be back at the end.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Round robin questions.
Absolutely.
All right. We are moving on to, last but certainly not least, we're going to go to Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamarr. They are the authors of The World Record Book of Racist Stories, published by Grand Central Publishing. So first question from Hannah. There it is. Yeah. Authors, I am a picture book author, but my book is probably with my kids somewhere. But anyway, yeah, always have your book and hold it up right and have it in the background. You can see, and Carell, we'll cut you some slack because we know.
I have it. I'm going to grab it. I'm listening, so I'm going to grab it. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay. All right. So Amber and Lacey, this is a hilarious follow-up to You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey. But like the former, the stories here range from the everyday absurdity of microaggressions in the workplace or out shopping to some hair-raising close calls. And when you put them in writing, they don't always seem so micro, right? Asks Hannah.
Yeah, I can't. But I mean, we wrote the first book, You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey, Crazy Stories About Racism. And we thought, for sure, we have enough stories about racism to fill a book. And for sure, if we just cut out and only use the funny ones, we certainly have enough to write a whole book. And then when it came time to write a second book, I thought, it can't possibly, that you guys, this is crazy. And then guess what? That book filled up like this. It filled up as we were writing it. Honestly, there is a section in the book where we're sitting at mom and dad's and we're writing the book, and a guy is a plumber has come to fix the drain. And he's angry. And it was so beautiful. And we just wrote down what was happening as he was there. It was pretty great. So yeah, the stories are still happening.
I'm not happy that they're still happening. I am happy that you are sharing them, because I have not had a chance to read this book, but I read the first book and I was laughing and also like, oh no, but did that happen a lot, that you were potentially, noting down things as they happen?
Yes, because I still live in Omaha, Nebraska. Sorry, anyone that lives in Omaha, Nebraska, but things like that happen quite often. Amber lives in New York and still can't believe some of the things that happen to me on a daily basis. But so yeah, even as we were writing the first book, it was happening, and some of that stuff got added in. I was like, oh my God, this just happened. I know it's out to being edited, but we've got to throw this story in really quick. Yeah, great.
And they let you through it. They let you throw it.
They
in
let
real
us
quick.
throw it in really quick, and it happened with the second book too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Nice. I support that they let you do what you need to do. Speaking of your family, your book contains stories from your whole family. So there are intergenerational tales happening here. So this adds a lot of hilarity, but also reveals a distinct lack of change when your niece and your dad are both having these experiences. So what's the process of finding the humor there when you're writing? And then how do you take family stories into and like mold them into this essay form that we find in your book?
How nice of you to call it an essay form. It's just us talking. We're just talking.
We're just going to call that essay, right? We're calling things here what they are.
How nice to call it an essay. No, we really are. And we liked keeping it. We liked people to read it the way we would say it. And we wanted to keep it exactly like that, because the vibe of it is, you ain't never going to believe this mess. And then it comes through as you're reading it, because we just wrote it exactly the way we talk it. There is no, she sneered with a glint of, shame in her eye. No, there's none of that. We're just saying saying it exactly how we would tell it to you over a drink. And it helps with, then when that is the first book and the second, but
sorry.
In the second book, when we were talking to our family, we wanted to also honor the way that they were telling these stories. So we just wrote it down the way they're telling it, and they're not as doofy as we are. So we wrote it down, the dad's telling the story, he's going to tell a story. You ain't going to get no jokes in there. So we just honored the way they would tell it. And we do come out and say, hey, this book is, everyone's, exercising these stories. And so it has to, because if I were to take dad's story and add a bunch of jokes to it, which I could, he'd be so mad. But if I were to do that, it wouldn't do for him what it did for us, So we kept everyone's stories the way they would say it.
Excellent. Do you want to add anything, Lacy?
Just that it was really fun writing the second book, and everyone asks us, are you shocked that you had so many stories, that you had a second book? Absolutely not. So look out for the third book.
Well, and in this one, your family, like, did you approach them? Did they come to you where they were like, we have a story? Or did you, like, how did that go?
We approached them, and we sent messages and emails and texts out, send us your stories. And they just came pouring in. Yeah. And we did family, but we also did friends and people in the community as well. So there's some of those stories in there too, which are just as bizarre and unbelievable.
And I'm so happy you're saying you're going to keep it in the voice of the person who is telling it. There's not going to be any, she let out a breath, she didn't know she was holding anything like that, right? Because
no, none of that.
Yeah. And after reading your first book, like, your voices came through so strong. So I'm looking forward to hearing how everyone's voices come through in this book as well. The next question we have. So the places vary so wildly in the book where your family records these experiences, like educational settings to clerks out shopping. And Hannah says she thinks the book is a great example of just laughing at these situations so you don't go insane at the absurdity of living in a racist world. So is this book an outlet for folks, a how not to be racist guide? How can we expect, and can we expect, you already kind of hinted at that, more hilarious and eye-opening stories from you all?
It definitely, I love it when people say it's a what not to do. I mean, we almost called this book, Don't Do That.
Title for the third book. Like,
read it and be like,
still need
wow.
to tell you, don't do it.
Don't do it. Because when the first book came out, people were like, they would come up to me and be like, oh my goodness, I do this. I do this every day at my job. I say this to the one Black girl who works with me, and I'm going to stop doing that. I love to hear that. I love to hear that. So yes, it is a what not to do, but it's also helps people of color to know that, man, I'm not the only one that's going through this. And Lacy and Amber handled it this way. Maybe I can try that. But that we always tell people, we're not telling you what to do and how to handle racism. It's what's ever going to keep you safe, what's going to make you feel good, what you need to do at that certain situation, because every situation is completely different. But it is a book for everyone. Everyone can get something out of this book, every single person.
Well, and it sounds like it is an outlet for you two, and having a way to collaborate, of course, and write these stories down, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
And is there officially a third book? Can you not say? You don't have to if you can't.
I
say.
mean, no, but probably.
But
Half of it's been written already. It's
buddy.
I know. So people, we need to read the book so they have like we want to put this series out of
Right. Want to be like, oh, but we're
right
out
and moving on.
It's done.
Yes, come on. Yes, hold the book up again. Okay, get the book. Cure racism, and then your family can, right, your family can collaborate on another project. No. So I have some round robin questions that Hannah wanted to make sure we could ask everybody. What is your favorite childhood book? And I'm going to go in the order that we went, so there's not all so Rabia, unfortunately, that means you first. I saw you had your thinking face on there.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Actually, it's a book that I wrote about in this book. It's called Ginny and the Cooking Contest. And I came across it, I think when I was in 4th grade, and I read it 100 times. I mean, like, it just became raggedy. I read it over and over and over. And I don't know what it was about that book, because I mostly read like a lot of Nancy Drew mysteries. That's like what I usually was drawn to. But there was something about that book I just kept reading over and over. So that was like, and it was just about this young girl who, I don't know, some Midwestern girl. It had these really rudimentary drawings in it. And how she entered a cooking contest. And I think the book was like a really old book. I mean, this must have, okay, this is the 80s, but I think the book was like from the 60s or something. So I don't have any, I still remember it. And as I had this old yellow hardcover, and yeah, I'd love to find it again. Actually, if I could find it, it'd be pretty cool.
We got a lot of booksellers here. Maybe they could find it for you.
Cooking contest.
Give them behind the scenes looking. All right, Craig, how about you?
I told y'all I didn't read. You know what? Though,
What maybe a book someone read to you?
There was a book that I do remember in school, and I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember a book called Where the Red Fern Grows. And I just remember it being really sad. And as a kid going, God, something else to read.
Yeah, that one is a little sad. I read that in school too.
Yeah.
I
just remember that one from school. So,
all right, Carell, how about you?
Hey, so I read a book, I believe in 5th grade, called The Most Dangerous Game. Do you guys know that book? It's such a book. Because it's such a book of survival, and how everybody threw everything at this guy to try to get the best of him, but he always conquered. And I read it again, I believe in 7th grade. But I like Rabia, I need to find it again so I can read it again, because I just remember walking away with so much intrigue about how he sort of overcame all those obstacles that was thrown at him as prey. So that's one of my favorites.
Okay, and Amber and Lacy, and I know Lacy sounded like she recognized that book.
Oh yeah. Game is great. There's been a few movies made out of that. Where the Red Fern Grows is my daughter's favorite book, and I've bought several copies of her because she would wear it out. It's a great book. Mine, I was an extreme nerd. It's either Lord of the Rings or Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Love them both. Love all of them.
I'm good old fashioned Where the Sidewalk Ends. And also when I was a young kid, I liked anything Ezra Jack Keats, you know, like The Snowy Day with all those like
Peter.
beautiful drawings of little Black children. I couldn't get enough of that. Yeah.
And A Whistle for Willie.
Ooh.
Peter just out there hanging out, trying to learn how to whistle.
Yeah.
Another book question. Did you read or listen to any memoirs or essay collections while writing yours? And are there any favorites you have that have helped you as a writer? We'll go in the same order if that's okay.
I had read Hunger by Roxane Gay shortly before starting this book. I wanted to get an idea. Well, I mean, she's a brilliant woman and writer. And I also want to get an idea of kind of like what's been written about, what kind of memoirs exist around the issue of weight loss and body image. Her story is a deeply traumatic, terrible story. And my story has a much different kind of feel even in my life. So it wasn't that I read, but what I realized that there's space for all of these stories. I don't have, my weight loss journey story doesn't have to be deep and tragic and traumatic. It can be, which it very much feels like kind of like my big fat Greek wedding, like this huge family was all like, you'll never get married. Why are you fat? And, you know, and it was more of that tone, but a lot of love in it. And so, you know, I did read that, and I read a couple of others, and I realized that there's so many ways people have experienced this issue in so many ways, and it was completely legitimate for me to write it in the way that I experienced it. So.
Yes, and thank you, because that's what is making your book so awesome. Craig, we'll give you the caveat too, if there are any favorite maybe songs that helped you as a writer, since you're a songwriter too. You can answer that.
No, not really music. I really did when we were working on the book. I did this with Jim DeFleece. I really did focus on some of the writing and memoirs in particular. I read Red Platoon because a big part of my book is about my life in the military and operations and various things that I did with the military during my service as a soldier, as well as my service after getting out and becoming an entertainer, still working with them. I read a book called Red Platoon about a particular operation, and ended up meeting the author and became friends with him. And actually read the book. I didn't listen to it. As well as American Sniper. Again, both military related, just to try to better grasp how these writers displayed their lives in word, and kind of helped me. And I think it did, which is one of the reasons I chose Jim DeFleece to work with me on this book. He's a great military writer. He understands the language. So when he and I would communicate, and we were talking about various things within the book, especially concerning the military, I didn't have to explain myself. And he knew how to articulate some of those things that I maybe would not have done so eloquently.
Sounds like it was a perfect pairing then.
For sure.
All right, Carell, how about you? And hold your book up too. I don't know if
Oh
we've
yeah,
gotten
here's my book, guys. Here's the cover. And actually, I just found, they just sent me the calendar, which is Michelle Yates and King Kong's hand. So I just went back and just recreated these really cool scenes from movies. Dule Hill singing in the rain. That's actually Kelsey Scott as the Charlie Chaplin. And that's the hand. It's one of my favorites. So I just want to say, Craig, I'm actually ex-Army. So hood to you, and thank you so much for your service. I served in Germany.
Yeah.
From 93 to 96, and then I did National Guard. So so visually, I did look at a couple of books because I really wanted a book that sort of stood out, because I knew that I had to add words and say words. So I wanted the words to be in certain shapes and forms, you know, not just the typical block paragraphs. So as a creative, there's a shot of Jay Ellis holding a knife as the character in American Psycho did. And I said, what if we made the text in the form of a knife? Just to give the reader, you know, something visually different to look at, and sort of, you know, just have their mind like, hey, well, this is so bizarre. Why are we looking at this shape for just to read text? So Frank Okenfels had just done a book. So I looked through his book. It's a great photography book because it has so much more than photography in it. It has diagrams and things that he had written, and I did diagrams for Edward Scissorhands and Marla Gibbs. So I just really wanted to make sure that that we took that and try to incorporate it in the book.
Thank you. And that's another thing that is interesting. When people are flipping through the book, we can hop over and say, hey, did you notice the text is in the form of a knife? Yes. And the calendar.
Yeah, that's in the calendar. And I'm just very excited.
Yeah, we're excited for you. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, Amber and Lacy.
We did a lot of listening to Almost Home.
That is one of my favorite country songs. I listen to a lot of country music. And I was
From
like,
Nebraska.
We wrote Almost Home. Listen, everybody watching, if you do not know this song, you listen to Almost Home. That's my song.
Oh,
That's
y'all
cool.
just made my night. Y'all just made my night.
And I embarrass my daughter all the time. She'll dance along with me, but I told her, like, if we are somewhere, I'm from Northern New York, and International Harvester comes on, I'm just gonna be like acting it out. And she's like, what even is that, Mom? So anyway, Almost Home, and keep going.
We purposely did not read anything else, especially while we were writing the book. I mean, Lacy reads all the time, and I almost never do. But I certainly didn't want to get the stink of any other memoirs on me, so that then I would maybe start to regurgitate that same thing that I had just ingested. So I just made sure to leave it be during that time. But also we were too busy. Like, we had like Craig Morgan up like so high, you couldn't really like think to read, you could read, and then
And just could there be a part? Because there's never part 2 to songs. There's a few. Could you do a part 2? I need closure. That's all I'm saying. I'm putting it out there. Almost Home 2. Okay, we're past it. We're going on.
Well, could we ever be past wanting an Almost Home part 2? Who knows?
I want
There
to
you go.
stop and have dinner with these ladies.
I
Killing
mean,
me.
it sounds like if you write Almost Home part
Craig.
2, it can happen.
We need to exchange information.
I'm going to write it as soon as we're done.
Oh, and also, Carell, we're available for any photo shoots that you would like to do.
I could not agree with you more.
Rapunzel. I can be Rapunzel. Amber, climb up my hair.
Also, Rabia, we love food, and we'd love to eat food.
Listen,
I'd love to cook for you. I'd love to cook for all of you. And Carell, think about Bollywood. I have been waiting my whole life for the Bollywood. Yeah.
I am starting. So, Robbie, I'm such a huge fan of yours. I'm going to start where people in certain cultures, I could help oversee them doing their culture, because I wouldn't want to take a culture that I'm not completely familiar with and offend. So I think it'd be great to go to bring other photographers of other cultures and Asian.
I'm
Hispanic,
available
Bollywood,
now, tomorrow, anytime you want, for anything you want.
Listen, you heard
I
it
would
here
love
first.
to connect with you. Yes.
This is, I was just like, yes, this is amazing. I officially got permission from the NVNR staff to go a little bit over, because it's just been so fun with these questions. And obviously now everyone's going to connect with each other, and we'll see in however long it takes for you all to make these things happen. All these things are going to pop up, and we're going to be like, that started on that.
Well, we got a Rapunzel already.
Right, we got Rapunzel, we got Bollywood, we've got
Amber,
song
I'm thinking,
sequel,
Robbie, it's working.
we've got food. Speaking of favorite comfort food,
Ooh.
start us off, Rabia.
Greens.
Greens. Oh, we got greens here. Okay.
Oh, it's dal for me. Lentils, like creamy, buttery, lots of garlic, chilies. Yep.
Biscuit, mashed potatoes, hush puppies, mac and cheese. I'm home in the South, and I forget food has so much flavor because I just have an air fryer back in Los Angeles. But the way these women put those spices in, I have them to pack it up for me every single time. Wow. And I just freeze it the night before, and I get it back to LA and I freeze it, and I just have bits of it so I can enjoy it. It's incredible. So,
I've been keto for like 3 years. And so a glass of wine.
My condolences.
And chocolate. Like, I'd sometimes crave it so bad. So I know I'm gonna be weak tonight. That's all it is to it. I'll not have anything pretty much all day just so I can hit them Reese's cups with a glass of wine.
Yes,
Yes, I don't care. Give me cream, give me fat, just put it all in there and I'll work it out and run your cane when I go to do the thing. Yeah.
Get it all out later. Okay,
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
song right now?
Oh, for me, it's not something anybody's gonna know. It's a Punjabi song by this incredible Sufi Punjabi artist from India, and I have been playing it nonstop for like 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I always, I just have a real crazy playlist of just filled with all sorts of bizarre things, and Amber makes fun of me. No one's gonna know this song, but I want everyone to play it when you get done. It's called "After the Love" by Brian McKnight.
You don't need it.
It's
Oh, I know that song.
it's
After
so
the Love is
good,
Gone.
and I hadn't heard it in years, and now
Oh,
I've
yeah.
just been playing it and singing it all
It's
day.
not even a good Brian McKnight song.
Oh, he
This
has
is
some
Little
good ones.
Sisters. Did she just say this in front of everyone?
Kathy, extend this another hour.
Go to your room.
I'm getting to the bottom of it. No, I've been listening to Renaissance, of course.
Young
Beyonce's
people,
new Renaissance.
youngsters,
Yeah.
whippersnappers.
Yeah, one of my favorite songs right now I heard maybe 2 months ago. It's called "I'm Going Home" by Rosex, featuring the guy. I forget the guy's name, but you have to go hear this song. And the video is incredible as well. And it just brought me into this trance. The guy sounds a lot like John Legend, but it's not. His name escapes me. But it's called "I'm Going Home," and he's featured with Rosex, and I think that's Roesax. Featuring, and I don't have my computer here, but "I'm Going Home," the most incredible song you'll hear outside of Brian McKnight, "After the Love Is Gone."
That's
No.
right.
No,
That's going to be an essay in the next book.
Yeah.
Lacy trying to say how much he loves the song, and Amber just cutting in.
Yeah.
Whoever is editing it last will get the last word.
Yeah.
Hey, Craig, we need your song.
Okay, well, like in the same way you guys were talking about, you didn't read when y'all were when you were writing. I don't listen to a lot of music because I write music all the time. I might not finish a song every day, but I write a lot. And I'm as excited. I have a new song, and I'm not just trying to plug my single. I'm just telling you, but I want y'all to listen to it. I've got a new song that I've just come out with, and I think I'm as excited about it as anything I've ever had. It's called "How You Make a Man." And it's just because of this lyric in this chorus. You run, you crawl, you rise, you fall, you hit your knees till you learn to stand. Yeah, that's how you make a man. It's just so real. And it's not just about how you make a man, it's how we become good people. Sometimes we get hurt, and sometimes but we get through these things. We get back up. And anyway, I'm really excited about that. But again, that was a horrible, selfless plug. I'm not trying to, but I want you to listen to it, because if y'all liked Almost Home, I'd love to hear what y'all think about that. But my favorite thing, I cannot get this song out of my head, and it's been for me a year or so ago. We were doing this podcast thing we were doing during the pandemic, and we carried it through after the pandemic a little bit. And I heard this song called "Holy Water." Oh my gosh. God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Take me to the riverside. Take me under baptized. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. I mean,
yay.
I heard that, and it's just just about every day I hear that song in my head. I see something that God's done, and that song goes over.
Wow. Everyone is very happy in the chat. We got to hear you sing, and makes me feel good when I'm at home singing. I very dramatically turn my head sometimes. So now I'm like, Craig Morgan does it. Like, I can do that. If I would say Redneck Yacht Club, Brad Simpson has put about 25 exclamation points after Redneck Yacht Club. I told him I don't want to be on a boat ever, but when I'm singing Redneck Yacht Club, like I want to live that experience. So it's kind of, and my current favorite song, I have a small child who hyperfixates on movies, and the newest one that she is hyperfixated on is Sing. So my husband is hanging out with her and my 1-year-old, and it is just on repeat, literally the entire day. Shake It Off, straight into I'm Still Standing. And it's just been going, and she is just belting it out, which is why I have to have these in, because you might even be able to hear all the way down. So last question for you all. So all your stories are different, and they're so at the heart though of how people see us and how we come to see ourselves through our experiences. So I know Hannah really wanted to know, what do you hope readers take away from your book about themselves? Like, what do you hope they discover about themselves while reading your experiences and seeing your experiences?
Should I go first? Since that's the pattern so far. And if my dad calls again, I apologize.
You just wanted to get in on it.
Yeah, I can't stop Abu when he calls. I hope this is a story I think that will resonate with so many people, especially women, and who, like, when I think about the women in my life, I maybe 95% of them, when I meet them, I don't care what their body type is, I don't care how fit they are always concerned about what people think, like they're always either on some kind of diet, or they're some kind of fitness routine, or they're on keto. There's always this. So, but part of this is like, I want people to feel like, it's okay to want to improve yourself, but also know how to be like, how to love yourself, you know what I mean? And not hate like yourself, and also to have a healthy relationship with food. Because at the end of the day, we have, a lot of us have such toxic relationships with food. We feel terrible when we eat it. We feel like we're punishing ourselves. Like, we want to punish ourselves after we eat it. And it's just like it's counterproductive in every way. I mean, the whole purpose of food is to nourish you and to be a way to sustain you. And it's a lifelong friend as far as I'm concerned. And so I just hope people walk away from this feeling seen and feeling like, and I'll be honest, there were times when I wrote this book that people who are reviewing the book were saying to me, and people who did not ever have a weight loss struggle, saying, I don't understand. You're talking about like your struggle trying to lose weight, but also you're talking about how much you love food. This doesn't make sense. I'm like, that makes complete sense to anybody who's ever struggled with weight. I'm like, the problem is, this is not something you can walk away from in your life. You can't say, I'm just never going to eat again. So you have to find a way to have this relationship that's healthy and loving with food and with yourself. And I just really hope that a lot of women out there read this and they feel like they hear their story in it, and they are able to see the journey that I got to, that got me to a place where I'm like, I'm not going to hate myself for loving food anymore.
Thank you. I mean, we need more stories like that, and we need people to believe that, so they can have a healthier relationship, like you said, with food. Carell, I'm going over to you next.
Yes. So I think the biggest thing I want people to walk away from with my book is, sometimes I feel like Black art always has to be explained to make somebody or some comfortable. Particularly, I recognize that I am dealing with a lot of cultural icons, and people want to protect their cultural icons. And at a minimum, it's just art that you can sort of look through and enjoy. But on a deeper level, I just want people to sort of recognize it was done because, as a 6-year-old kid, I mentioned Dukes of Hazzard, 8, 9, 10. My cousins and I watching it at my grandmother's house on the couch, screaming and yelling and cheering for this car called the General Lee, taking off and landing and getting away from the bad guy with the Confederate flag on the hood. So I was a kid. Nobody seemed concerned about the implications that would have on me or my outlook on life. So when I sort of came into who I am as a person and sort of recognized, I just thought it was a little bit unfair. So this is just a little bit of a sort of correction on that. So what I want people to take away from this is it's art, but this is what happens when you sort of don't see yourself reflected in certain ways.
And iconic characters there's nothing, they don't have to look a specific way, right? Like
Right.
they have these qualities
And their character.
and they're a
Yeah.
character, correct?
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
I love the idea of reimagining. I look forward to many more, especially Rapunzel, obviously coming up.
Rapunzel, we got you. We got you. Amber, we got you too. We're coming up with something.
Craig, what about you?
I think a lot of the same things that Robbie was saying. You know, my big thing when people read this book for themselves, I hope that they see that failing, hurt, pain, heartache isn't the end. And for me, more importantly, I hope that they find that there is a much greater power in our Lord and Savior. I hope that they see that in some way. I'm not trying to change anybody's perspectives or nothing. I leave that up to God, but I hope that in some way I'm enlightening them to heartache and hurt is not the end. And we can all do better. We can all do better. And we should attempt that and at least try. So, I mean, that's really when they read the stories and the things that we've experienced and that I've been through and where we're at today, they'll see that.
Thanks. I think that's an important and always timely message that we can always try and do better. How about you, Amber and Lacey?
I think I kind of touched on it earlier when we were talking about how people are like, oh my goodness, I do this and I need to stop doing that. And also making people feel seen. I feel like those are two important things.
Yeah,
So,
I hope that people are like, I cannot believe all these things happen to one tiny lady. Like I say that in the book too. It's like the sheer volume of the happenings, and to know that that's not even all the funny stories, you know, which is not all the stories, which is not, you know, her lifetime of stories. It's just up until this moment, just the funny, you know. So I hope people are shocked by the volume and then moved to whatever action that moves them to.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. I want to end with Bill in the chat said, thanks to everyone. You made my evening. Looking forward to selling all of your amazing books. Great finale for NVNR. And I agree. So thank you so much to our amazing, hold those books up or have them. Yeah, we want to see them, right? Perfect. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for showing up throughout the conference for NVNR. And thank you especially to all of our authors for joining us tonight and for the songs. And we look forward to your collaborations in the future.